Yes people, today we're going to be making a bass similar to that in Baddadan by Chase Status and Bou, and it sounds a bit like this.
Baddadan, 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 bad from me bad.
For this you'll mainly need Vital, which is a free to download VST. You'll also need the Echo Soundworks packs Basic and Analog, which are also free to download. I'm going to be using Decapitated by Sound Toys for some saturation, but you can substitute this with a saturator of your choice. I'm also going to be using the Dimension Expander by Zephyr Records, which again is a free download. Finally, you'll also need an EQ of your choice, and I'll also be using a utility, which is optional. I'll be making this in Ableton Live, but you can make this in a DAW of your choice. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, so I've got my MIDI drawn out here. It's going from F1 down to B0, up to D sharp 1, and then on to F sharp 1. I'm not sure how accurate it is, but for the purposes of this video, it will do. And with my initialized instance of Vital, this is what it sounds like. Okay, so to start, we want to bring the voices down from 8 all the way to 1. We want to up the glide to about 0.045 seconds. We want to turn always glide on, and we want to stick legato on as well. Okay, so the reason we've gone with these settings, so one voice, because we don't need to hear more than one of this sound at a time. Always glide, because when we're changing notes, it just helps the notes sort of slide to one another. And legato, well, with the MIDI we've done here, it wouldn't necessarily be needed. However, I have found when I was playing around with this sound, legato tends to reduce the chance of clicks and pops, and I'm not entirely sure why, but that's just what I found. On the first oscillator, we want to change the sound to the ARP triangle from the ESW analog pack. We want to bring the phase randomization all the way down to 0, so that the sound is more consistent. And we want to bring the octave down, an octave, sorry. If you hold shift while dragging on Vital, on the transpose, it will bring it down an octave in one go. And we want to change the level to about 0.77. If you right click on a knob in Vital, you can manually enter the value. On oscillator 2, we want to change the wavetable to the sine down sample in the ESW Basics pack. We again want to bring phase randomization all the way down to 0%. We want to transpose it up 19, so going up an octave plus 7. And we want to bring the volume down to about 0.2. We also want to route this to filter 1. Okay, so the reason we've gone up 19 is because this is what's known as a perfect fifth. So a perfect fifth is 7 semitones up from the root note, which might sound confusing, so if you're unsure on the music theory side of things, we'd probably recommend watching a couple more videos on it. However, because we've gone up an octave as well, which is 12 semitones, 12 plus 7 equals 19. And so far, it should sound like this. We also want to add some white noise, but we're going to trigger this through the envelope. So we're going to bring the level all the way down to 0. So far, it won't have any effect on the sound. We want to add a filter to this sound. So on filter 1, we can leave it as analog 12. The value at the top here, the blend, we want to bring that to about 0.3. The resonance at the side, we want to bring that down to about 25%. And the cutoff at the bottom, we want to take nearly all the way down to around -50. The drive, we want to bring to about 4.3. And the mix, we can leave on 100%. So the envelope, we want to leave delay as it is. We want to bring the attack up to about 0.08. The hold, we want to leave on 0. The decay, we want to bring to about 0.8. That'll do. And the stain we want to bring all the way down to 0. The release we do want to bring up slightly to about 0.25. You also want to adjust the envelope slightly to make it look more like a shark fin. So bringing this notch, we will bring this down, and on the attack we'll bring this notch up a bit. So, on the effects, firstly, the compressor. We want to leave it as multiband. We want to bring the attack up to about 54% and the release up to about 59%. That'll do. The low we want to bring down to about 13.3. The mid band we want to bring to about 14.8. And the high band we want to bring to about 9.6. Next, we want to add some distortion. We want to change the distortion type to hard clip. And we want to bring the drive up to about 8. Next, we want to add some EQ. We want to bring the lows down a bit and boost the highs ever so slightly. So, say around there. And there, ever so slightly. And finally, we want to add some chorus. So we're going to turn that on and bring it down underneath the EQ. So that's the last effect in the chain. So if we just drag this, there we go. Right, so the voices, we can bring them down to 8. The frequency we can set to freeze, so we bring that all the way down. The depth, we can really leave it, but there we go, boost it ever so slightly. Delay 1 we can leave in its place, and with delay 2 we can change that to about let's say 2.02, because why not? The feedback, we're going to drop that to around 15%, and the mix, we're going to drop that ever so slightly to 45%. The cutoff, we're going to boost slightly to be around 72. So now it should sound like this. Now we're going to use the envelope to really bring out that sound a bit more. So on oscillator 2, we're going to drag it to the level. We want to change the level, the value, sorry, to be about 0.5. We want to bring this down to the filter 1 drive. We can change the value of this to around 4.8. Want to bring the envelope onto the cutoff as well and make that about 48. And we also want to bring it onto the white noise, and we really don't want much at all. I'm talking about 0.008. Now, this might seem like a pointless amount of automation to add. However, as you'll hear in a second, it does add a little bit of crispiness to the high end. And finally, we want to bring this onto the distortion as well. So, onto the drive. And we want to enter the value of around 6.8. So far it should sound like this. Now for some final touches. So, bring on an EQ. I'm just going to use the bog standard Ableton 8 EQ. And what we're going to do here, we're going to take down the lows a bit and some of the mid-high frequencies. So, around the 100 Hz we'll have a low shelf, bringing it down to about 0.68. Around the 5000 Hz mark, have a little dip around 3.8 decibels. And then around 12,000 we'll have a high cut as so. Next we're going to add decapitator. So first things first, we want to turn the auto switch off by the output. If we leave it on, you'll notice the output level decreases. That's not what we want, so if we turn that off. A quick little tip for you in Decapitator, if you click on the text above the knob, this will change to a number so you can see the value that you're adding in. So we want to bring the drive up to 4.8. We want to change the style to be T, and we want to take the tone down by about 1.8. There we go. And for some final touches, we're going to add a dimension expander to add some width to it. So bring the dry wet to around 10 o'clock and the size all the way down low. And then finally, just for good measure, what I like to do is add a utility. The reason we're adding a utility is because it has a bass mono setting. Now, going in depth into the stereo image field probably take another video, but generally speaking, in essence, we want to keep the lower frequencies mono. So with the bass mono switched on, we're going to bring that up to around 240. And this is what you're left with. Of course, with the higher pitch sound, if you were to bring the low end down on the EQ, it will make it sound a bit more clearer. You can also play with the decay to make it a bit more snappy. I've also quickly thrown together this with some drums and a sub, just to give you an idea of what this might sound like in an actual song. And there we have it. That's how you make a sound similar to Baddadan by Chase Status and Bou. I just want to say a massive thank you for watching this video. As you might have been able to tell, this is the very first one of these sorts of tutorials I've done. And whilst I have given one-to-one production lessons before, it's a bit of a different kettle of fish speaking to a camera. If you have any feedback or if there's any sort of requests or things you'd like to see, please let me know in the comments. I'll leave links to my socials and to some of my music on Spotify. But yeah, until next time, take care.